The human was staring again, not the polite, curious staring we had studied in the diplomatic briefings. No, this was different. This was the kind of staring that made my secondary lungs stop functioning entirely. I am Vek-Thorn of the Galactic Commerce Guild, 43 cycles of service, recipient of the Bronze Merit for Excellence in Trade Negotiations, and currently, I was wondering if I had made a terrible mistake accepting this assignment. The human, designation Marcus Webb, sat across the negotiation table in Conference Room 7 of the orbital station Prometheus. His species had only joined the galactic community 6 months ago. 6 months. We had protocols older than their entire space program. They should have been fumbling through basic trade agreements, asking silly questions about currency exchange rates, maybe accidentally insulting someone's thorax configuration. Instead, Marcus Webb sat there with his hands folded, his eyes. Oh, those eyes, tracking every single movement I made. I reached for my data tablet. His eyes followed. I adjusted my breathing vents. His eyes followed. I twitched my left sensory tendril exactly 0.3 millimeters. His eyes followed. Is something wrong, Ambassador Vek-Thorn? Marcus asked, his mouth curving upward in what their species called a smile. The diplomatic files said smiles indicated friendliness and warmth. The diplomatic files were written by idiots. No, everything is functioning within acceptable parameters, I managed to say, trying to keep my chromatic scales from flashing the purple of extreme distress. Stay professional, I told myself. You have negotiated with the Kralix hive mind. You have survived trade talks with the dimensional rift merchants. You can handle one small, soft, bipedal mammal. Marcus tilted his head 0.7 degrees to the left. I calculated it automatically, my species having evolved to track predator movements on our homeworld. Except Marcus was not supposed to be the predator in this scenario. Humans were Category 4 on the danger assessment scale. 4. That was the same rating as the Fluffian peace poets. You seem nervous, Marcus observed, those terrifying eyes never blinking. Do they ever blink? I had been in this room for 37 minutes, and I had not seen him blink once. Would you like some water? Coffee. We have that now. Learned how to make it in zero gravity. Only exploded twice during testing. He laughed. A short, barking sound that made my protective plates rattle. I am perfectly comfortable, I lied, accessing my tablet with trembling manipulators. Shall we discuss the mining rights to asteroid cluster Sigma 9? Sure. Marcus leaned back in his chair, but his eyes, by the 3 moons, his eyes stayed locked on me. Though I gotta say, Vek-Thorn, can I call you Vek? You seem a little jumpy. Everything okay with your species? No health issues I should know about. My health is optimal, I said too quickly, my voice rising to a pitch that probably registered on several sonic frequencies. Let us review the terms. The Guild proposes a 70-30 split of refined minerals, with your species receiving the smaller percentage as is customary for newly admitted members. 70-30. Marcus repeated the numbers slowly, still not blinking. Still watching. That is interesting. The way he said interesting made my survival instincts scream. I had heard that tone before. Once. From a void stalker, right before it tried to eat my shuttle. It is the standard arrangement, I explained, pulling up the relevant documentation on the holographic display. As you can see from these 17 precedents spanning 400 cycles, newly integrated species typically accept. I stopped talking because Marcus had moved. Just shifted his weight forward. Maybe 10 centimeters. But I noticed. Of course I noticed. And he knew I noticed because that smile got wider. Vek, buddy, pal, my good friend from the stars. His voice was warm, friendly, absolutely terrifying. Here's the thing about humans. We are not really big on typical. See, we have this phrase back home. Would you like to hear it? I did not want to hear it. Every fiber of my being screamed that I did not want to hear it. But I was a professional, so I gestured with my primary appendage for him to continue. Marcus leaned forward even more, his eyes locking onto mine with the focus of a military targeting system. The phrase is this: possession is 9/10 of the law. I do not understand the relevance. We already have 17 mining operations set up on Sigma 9. His smile never wavered. Started them 2 weeks ago. Thought we would be proactive. You know how we are. Always doing things. Moving around. Being active. My chromatic scales flashed purple, then orange, then a shade of distressed green that had no name in galactic standard. That is against protocol. You cannot establish operations before trade agreements are finalized. This is us doing business the human way, Marcus finished, standing up slowly. Very slowly. Like he knew sudden movements would make me bolt. So here is our counteroffer, Vek. 3070. In our favor. We will share our extremely efficient mining techniques with the guild. We will even throw in some of that coffee I mentioned. Trust me, your people are going to love it. He extended his hand across the table. Another human gesture. A handshake. A sign of agreement that I stared at that hand like it was a thermal detonator. What? I swallowed hard, my throat sacs constricting. What happens if I refuse? Marcus's smile never changed, but something in his eyes did. Something ancient and patient and absolutely inevitable. Then I guess we will have to renegotiate. And Vek, between you and me, humans are really good at renegotiating. I did not shake his hand. That I know. Monumentally stupid decision. But you have to understand something about my species. We evolved on a world where the primary predators hunted by waiting. Just waiting. Sitting perfectly still until you made one wrong move. And then you became lunch. So our instincts said never, ever commit to an action when a predator is watching. And Marcus Webb was definitely watching. I need to consult with my superiors, I said, pulling my hand back so fast I knocked over my ceremonial water sphere. It splashed across the table in zero gravity, forming perfect little floating orbs that drifted between us like tiny, judgmental planets. Marcus watched one droplet float past his face. Then, finally, he blinked. Just once. Slow and deliberate, like a cat acknowledging a mouse. Of course, he said, reaching out and popping one of the water spheres with his finger. It burst into smaller droplets with a sound like breaking glass. Take all the time you need. We are not going anywhere. Well, actually, we are going lots of places. Humans are very mobile. But you know what I mean. He was doing it again. That thing where his words seemed friendly but felt like a threat wrapped in a diplomatic greeting card that I gathered my tablets with as much dignity as I could manage, which was approximately none, and fled. Actually fled. Me, a senior ambassador. Scuttling out of conference room 7 like a juvenile facing their first mating competition. The corridor outside was blessedly empty. I pressed my back against the wall, all 7 of my breathing vents working overtime, my chromatic scales cycling through colors so fast I probably looked like a malfunctioning distress beacon. Okay, I muttered to myself, accessing my communication implant. This is fine. This is manageable. This is exactly the kind of situation you trained for. Except, with more terrifying eye contact and less adherence to established protocol. I opened a priority channel to guild headquarters. The connection took exactly 4 seconds, during which time I contemplated every life choice that had led me to this moment. The face that appeared on my visual cortex was Director Yelmarth, 3rd Administrator of the Commerce Division, approximately 900 cycles old, and possessing the patience of someone who had literally seen everything twice. Ambassador Vek-Thorn, she said, her tone suggesting she was already regretting answering my call. Please tell me you have secured the standard agreement with the humans. Define secured, I said weakly. There was a pause. A long, heavy pause that somehow traveled faster than light just to make me feel worse. Vek-Thorn, what did you do? Nothing. I did nothing. That is the problem. The humans. Director, they already have mining operations on Sigma 9. 17 of them. They started before we even began negotiations. That is, Director Yelmarth's face went through several colors I had never seen on our species before. That is completely against procedure. Did you inform them of the violation? I tried, but he just sat there, watching me, not blinking. And then he smiled. Director. He smiled while explaining how they were changing the terms. 70-30 in their favor. And he offered me coffee. Coffee. It is a human stimulant beverage. Highly addictive. I looked it up during the meeting on my secondary tablet. They consume it voluntarily. Multiple times per day? What kind of species does that? Director Yelmarth was silent for approximately 7 seconds. Then, did you at least threaten to revoke their guild membership? I know. Did you cite Regulation 447 regarding unauthorized resource extraction? I know. Did you do anything besides panic? I considered lying. Then I remembered that Director Yelmarth had 3 sets of sensory organs specifically evolved to detect lies. Not as such, no. Another pause. This one felt judgmental. Ambassador Vek-Thorn, you are a trained professional. You have handled difficult negotiations before. The humans are Category 4 on the danger assessment. The fluffy and peace poets are Category 4. Are you telling me you cannot handle a species-rated equivalent to poets? Director, with all due respect, and I mean this with the utmost professional courtesy, the danger assessment scale is wrong. The humans are not Category 4. They are not even Category 7. They are something else entirely. Something that smiles while breaking rules. Something that watches you like what? Like they are deciding which part to eat first. There was another long silence. Then Director Yelmarth did something I had never seen her do in 43 cycles. She sighed. Actually sighed. A long, exhausted exhalation that somehow conveyed centuries of bureaucratic frustration. Where is the human now? She asked. Still in conference room 7, I assume. Probably still sitting there. Still watching. Still not blinking. Vek-Thorn, I am going to tell you something that is not in any official documentation. Something that only gets passed between senior guild members after many, many cycles of service. Are you listening? Yes, Director. 6 months ago, when the humans first made contact, we sent Ambassador Trcaked to handle first negotiations. Do you know Ambassador Trcaked? Of course. Legendary negotiator. Secured the Andromeda trade routes single-handedly. Rumor says he once made a Void collective drone admit it was wrong about shipping rates. Trcaked lasted 47 minutes in a room with a human diplomatic team before requesting immediate medical leave. He now teaches underwater basket weaving on his homeworld and refuses to discuss what happened. We sent 3 more ambassadors after him. All 3 are currently on extended sabbatical. My chromatic scales went completely white. The color of pure, existential terror. Director, what are the humans? Honestly, Vek-Thorn, we have no idea. But here is what we do know. They have been in space for exactly 300 cycles. 300. My morning meditation routine is older than their space program. And yet, somehow, they have established trade routes with 47 different systems, resolved 2 territorial disputes that have been ongoing for millennia, and apparently now they run unauthorized mining operations with enough efficiency to make our own engineers weep with envy. So what do? You go back in there and you negotiate. Because if we cannot figure out how to work with the humans now, while they are still new and theoretically manageable, then in another 300 cycles. Director Yelmarth's expression was grim. In another 300 cycles, they will probably own the galaxy, and we will all be working for them. The connection terminated. I stood in that empty corridor, processing everything I had just learned, and came to a single, crystal-clear conclusion that I needed a new job. But first, I needed to not die of stress-induced chromatic failure in a space station corridor that I gave myself exactly 90 seconds to have what humans would call a breakdown. I cycled through every color in my species' emotional spectrum twice, hyperventilated through all 7 breathing vents simultaneously, and briefly considered faking my own death and assuming a new identity on a remote agricultural colony. Then, because I am a professional despite everything, I straightened my ceremonial sash, accessed the station's database for every available file on human negotiation tactics, and walked back toward conference room 7 like I was heading to my own execution. Which, let us be honest, I probably was. The door slid open with a cheerful hiss that felt deeply inappropriate for the situation. Marcus Webb was still there. Of course he was still there. He had somehow acquired a beverage container in my absence and was casually sipping from it while reading something on a human data device. He looked up when I entered. Smiled. That smile. Vek, you came back. I was starting to worry you might have gotten lost. Station layouts can be confusing, right? So many corridors. So many identical doors. Very easy to accidentally end up somewhere you did not mean to be. Was that a metaphor? Was he threatening me metaphorically? I could not tell, and that made it worse. I have consulted with my superiors, I said, settling back into my seat with as much dignity as I could summon. The guild is willing to discuss alternative arrangements. However, I must inform you that establishing operations before finalizing trade agreements is a severe violation of Galactic Commerce Code, Section 12, subsection 47B, I know. Marcus took another sip of his beverage. I read it. Fascinating stuff. Very thorough. Lot of subsections. Really makes you appreciate the attention to detail your people have. He had read it. The entire Commerce Code was 17,000 pages long. It took most species 4 cycles just to get through the table of contents. When did you? Last Tuesday, Marcus said cheerfully. Could not sleep. Jet lag. Well, space lag. Station lag. Still figuring out what to call it. Anyway, I found the code surprisingly engaging. Especially the part about provisional operational exceptions in cases of immediate resource scarcity. Section 19, subsection 92C. Ring, any bells? My primary brain actually stuttered, like a malfunctioning computer. Because yes, that section existed, and yes, it technically allowed for provisional operations under specific circumstances, but those circumstances were incredibly narrow and required proof of immediate scarcity and documentation of emergency need, and there is no immediate scarcity, I said weakly. Sigma 9's resources are abundant. That is why we are negotiating for them. True. Marcus set down his beverage with a soft clink. But there is an immediate scarcity of refined titanium-7 in the outer rim sectors. Medical facilities need it for advanced surgical equipment. Without it, mortality rates increase by approximately 15%. Tragic, really. Which is why we, being the helpful, community-minded species that we are, started emergency operations to address that scarcity. All properly documented, by the way. Filed the paperwork 3 weeks ago. Check your guild database under Emergency Provision Request, reference number HUM 2187, Sigma. I accessed the database with trembling manipulators. The request was there. Properly formatted. Correctly cited. Approved by some junior administrator who probably processed 6,000 forms per cycle and never read any of them carefully. The humans had outmaneuvered us using our own bureaucracy that I think I made a sound. Not a word. Just a sound. Something between a whimper and a defeated wheeze. Now, about that 70-30 split, Marcus continued, his tone remaining impossibly pleasant. We understand the guild has protocols, traditions, ways things have always been done, and we respect that. Really, we do. Humans love tradition. We have holidays celebrating traditions we invented just so we would have something to celebrate traditionally. But I managed to croak out. But we also have this thing where we really hate being taken advantage of. Call it a cultural quirk. Goes back to our history. We spent a lot of time on our home planet dealing with various groups trying to exploit other groups, and eventually we developed this collective response to unfair treatment. Want to know what that response is? I did not want to know. I desperately did not want to know. But I nodded anyway because what else was I going to do? Marcus leaned forward again, and this time his smile had an edge to it. Not threatening exactly. More like educational. We get creative, he said simply. See, that 70-30 split you offered? Standard for new members, sure. But here's the thing. Every single species that accepted that split had something in common. They needed the guild more than the guild needed them. They were resource poor, technologically behind, or politically isolated. They took the bad deal because it was still better than having no deal. He paused, taking another sip of his beverage. I waited, my chromatic scales flickering between 6 different colors of anxiety. But humans? We are resource-rich. Our asteroid belt alone has enough raw materials to supply half the guild for a century. We are technologically. Well, let us say we are catching up fast. Very fast. Surprisingly fast. And politically? We just established formal relations with the Kelver Confederacy last week. Nice folks. Very interested in human entertainment media. Apparently, they find our action movies hilarious. We are discussing trade agreements now. The Kelver Confederacy. One of the guild's primary competitors. This was not just negotiation anymore. This was chess. Multidimensional chess. With pieces I had not even known were on the board. So here is what I am thinking. Marcus continued, pulling up a holographic document that looked suspiciously official. 60-40 split. In our favor. We provide the guild with exclusive access to our mining efficiency techniques, which, I am not bragging here, just stating facts, are approximately 40% more efficient than current guild standards. We also agree to process 10% of our refined materials through guild facilities, which means jobs for your people and fees for your organization. He waved his hand, and the holographic document floated across the table toward me. In exchange, the guild provides us with full member status, complete voting rights, and access to the restricted technology exchange program. Normally, that takes new members 50 cycles to qualify for. We would like it now. I stared at the document, then at Marcus, then back at the document. This is, you are asking for everything we want while making it look like you are getting a good deal? Yeah, pretty much. Marcus's smile somehow got wider. But here is the beautiful part, Vek. You are getting a good deal. Your superiors will see increased efficiency, new revenue streams, and a promising partnership with a species that, let us face it, is going places. Fast places. Lots of places. Places you probably want to be involved with before we get there and establish our own operations. He was right. Every single word he said was right, and that made it so much worse. How? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How does your species do this? You have been in space for 300 cycles. 300. Some of our trade agreements are older than your oldest cities. Marcus's expression softened slightly. For just a moment, I saw something behind those terrifying eyes. Something that might have been sympathy, or possibly pity. Want to know a secret, Vek? I nodded. We have been negotiating with each other for approximately 10,000 cycles. Humans negotiating with humans. Over land, resources, trade routes, political power, you name it. We have tried every possible strategy, counter-strategy, and counter-counter-strategy. We have entire academic fields dedicated to studying negotiation. We write books about it, make movies about it, teach it to our children as basic life skills. He gestured around the room. Everyone else in the galaxy? You have been negotiating with aliens. Different species, different mindsets, different biological imperatives. But mostly you have been negotiating with species that think differently than you do. Which is hard, sure, but it also means you can predict them based on biology and culture. Marcus pointed at himself. But humans? We negotiate with other humans. People who think exactly like we do. Who know all the same tricks. Who will absolutely exploit any weakness because they know we would do the same to them. We have been running the most competitive negotiation training program in the universe for 10 millennia, and we did not even know it. He picked up the stylus for signing documents and held it out to me. So what do you say, Vek? Do we have a deal? I looked at the stylus, then at Marcus, then at my entire career flashing before my eyes. Then I took the stylus, because Director Yelmarth was right. In 300 more cycles, the humans were going to own the galaxy. And honestly, I wanted to be on their side when they did. I signed the document. My hand, manipulator, whatever you want to call it, was shaking so badly that my signature looked like a seismic readout from a planetary collapse. But I signed it. All 7 pages. Each one filled with clauses that would make my professors at the academy weep with either admiration or horror. Possibly both. Marcus Webb watched me sign every single page, his eyes tracking the movement of the stylus like he was tracking prey. Which I suppose he was. Diplomatic prey. The most dangerous kind. When I finished, he took the document, reviewed it with the speed of someone who had definitely read 17,000 pages of commerce code in a single sleepless night, and then smiled that smile one final time. Pleasure doing business with you, Vek. He stood up, extending his hand again. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership. That is a reference to one of our old movies. You should watch it sometime. Very educational. Lot of negotiation. Some betrayal. Dramatic music. Humans love dramatic music. This time, I shook his hand. What else was I going to do? I had already sold my soul. Might as well commit to the gesture. His grip was firm, but not crushing. Warm. Almost friendly. It made everything somehow worse, because it reminded me that Marcus was not actually trying to be threatening. This was just how humans did things. This was them being normal, terrifying thought that, I will need to submit this to the Guild Council for final approval, I said, trying to salvage some small scrap of professional protocol from the wreckage of my dignity. Standard procedure requires a 7-cycle review period before implementation. Of course. Marcus released my hand and started packing up his materials with the casual efficiency of someone who had absolutely won and knew it. Though, just between us, you might want to expedite that review. Word is the Kelver Confederacy is offering us a pretty sweet deal on exclusive mining rights to the Theta Quadrant. Would be a shame if we had to accept their offer because the guild was still stuck in committee. He was threatening me again. But this time he was doing it while helping me organize my data tablets like we were old friends. The cognitive dissonance was making my secondary brain hurt. I will see what I can do, I muttered, accepting my tablets from him with as much grace as I could manage, which was still approximately none. Excellent. Marcus walked me to the door, one hand hovering near my shoulder in what human body language files claimed was a friendly gesture, but which my instincts interpreted as a predator herding prey toward the exit. Oh, and Vek. One more thing. I stopped at the doorway, every survival instinct screaming. Yes, that coffee I mentioned earlier. I am sending a case of it to your quarters. Try it. Seriously, your species' physiology should handle the caffeine just fine. We checked. Thoroughly. Very thoroughly. Possibly more thoroughly than was strictly necessary, but humans are careful about these things. Usually. Sometimes. When we remember. He handed me a small container that I had not even noticed him carrying. Inside was a dark powder that smelled bitter and strangely appealing and probably highly addictive knowing humans. This is a bribe, I said flatly, staring at the container. This is a gift, Marcus corrected, his tone suggesting there was a meaningful difference that I was too unsophisticated to understand. Between friends, colleagues, trading partners who definitely did not just renegotiate a major contract in a way that benefits both parties while also establishing human dominance in future negotiations. That is exactly what we just did. Well, sure, if you want to be technical about it. Marcus shrugged. But here is the thing about humans, Vek. We are very good at making mutually beneficial arrangements that also happen to position us advantageously for future interactions. Call it enlightened self-interest. Call it strategic cooperation. Call it whatever makes you feel better about the fact that yes, we absolutely just outmaneuvered the entire Galactic Commerce Guild using nothing but bureaucratic loopholes, threatening alternative partnerships, and offering you addictive stimulant beverages as friendship tokens. He patted my shoulder. Actually patted it. Like I was a small child who had just learned a valuable life lesson. You are going to do great, Vek. I can tell. You are smart, you are adaptable, and most importantly, you know when you are beaten. That is a valuable skill. Most species take decades to figure that out. You managed it in under 2 hours. Impressive. I clutched my tablets and my coffee container and my shredded dignity and stumbled out into the corridor. Behind me, I heard Marcus call out one last thing. See you at the next negotiation session, buddy. We are talking about those navigation rights through the Hyperion Gate next week. Should be fun. The door slid shut with that same cheerful hiss. I stood there for approximately 30 seconds, processing everything that had just happened. Then I did something I had not done since my juvenile phase. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not a relieved laugh. The kind of laugh that happens when you realize the universe is infinitely stranger and more terrifying than you ever imagined. And the only appropriate response is semi-hysterical laughter while standing alone in a space station corridor, holding alien coffee. A passing maintenance drone paused to scan me, probably checking if I needed medical assistance. I waved it away and started walking toward my quarters, my chromatic scales cycling through colors that had no official designation, because no one had ever been this specific combination of defeated, impressed, and caffeinated by proxy before. By the time I reached my quarters, I had already composed 3 different reports in my head. The first was honest and would get me reassigned to cataloging space debris. The second was diplomatic and would get me a stern lecture about representing guild interests. The third was strategically vague and would probably get me promoted because nobody actually wanted to deal with humans directly. I went with option 3. Obviously, while my report uploaded to guild headquarters, I opened the coffee container Marcus had given me. The smell was stronger now. Complex. Layered. Definitely addictive. I made a small cup using my quarters beverage synthesizer, following the instructions helpfully included on the container in 17 different languages, including Galactic Standard. I took one sip. It was absolutely delicious, and I immediately understood why humans consumed this voluntarily multiple times per day, and also why Marcus had given it to me, because now I was going to need this to function and would probably have to establish regular trade with humans just to maintain my supply. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The humans were not just negotiating trade agreements. They were creating dependencies, building relationships, establishing themselves as indispensable partners one addictive beverage at a time. Why communication implant bust. Director Yelmartha's face appeared in my visual cortex, her expression unreadable. Ambassador Vek-Thorn, I have reviewed your preliminary report. The council is processing the information. I understand, Director. I take full responsibility for the outcome. Responsibility. Director Yelmartha's face did something complicated. Vek-Thorn, you just secured a deal that gives us access to technology that will revolutionize guild operations, established a partnership with the most aggressively expansionist species in recent memory, and positioned us as their preferred trading partner before the Kelver Confederacy could make a counteroffer. The council is not upset. The council is confused about how you managed it. I took another sip of coffee. I let the human think he won. And did he win? Oh, absolutely. Completely. Totally. We are going to be working for them within a century. Maybe less. There was a long pause. Then Director Yelmarth did something I had never seen her do before. She smiled. Actually smiled. The expression looked strange on her face, like a mountain deciding to dance. Then we should probably make sure we are their favorite employees, she said. Well done, Ambassador. Your next assignment is coordinating with Human Trade Representative Marcus Webb on the Hyperion Gate navigation rights. Try not to give away the entire galaxy this time. I will do my best, Director. And Vek-Thorn? One more thing. Yes, Director? Send me whatever the human gave you. I am told it helps with long work cycles. The connection terminated that I sat in my quarters, drinking coffee, reviewing the trade agreement I had just signed, and contemplating the future of galactic civilization. Somewhere on that station, Marcus Webb was probably already preparing for the next negotiation, reading another 10,000 pages of regulations, finding more loopholes, planning more strategies. And you know what? I was almost looking forward to it. Because yes, the humans were terrifying. Yes, they were going to dominate the galaxy. Yes, they negotiated like apex predators who had spent 10,000 years practicing on each other. But they made excellent coffee. And honestly, in this universe, sometimes that was enough that I raised my cup in a solitary toast to humanity, to the future, and to whatever poor ambassador would have to negotiate with them next. Then I finished my coffee, requested 3 more cases from Human Supply Division, and started preparing for the Hyperion Gate negotiations. After all, if you cannot beat them, you might as well caffeinate with them. Subscribe for more amazing HFY stories, science fiction narratives, and tales of human excellence. Like if you enjoyed this diplomatic showdown, comment your favorite moment from the story.